Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the last episode of the year of Nursing Uncharted. Here it is the end of the year. It's December 5th. I'm Maggie Reichard. I'm a full-time medical ICU nurse and your host for this podcast. Thank you so much for listening today. This episode is going to be a fun episode. It's just an end of the year recap today. We're going to reflect on the year and talk about aspirations for the new year. So if you have some, maybe this will inspire you to, start thinking about that for the new year. This episode is sponsored by AMN Passport. AMN Passport is a travel nursing app that helps you find, book, and manage assignments all from your phone, putting you in the fast track for your next travel assignment. So if you are in the market for a travel assignment, be sure to check that out. So today, like I said, we're reflecting on the year with a good friend of mine who I met while I was a travel nurse. Her name's Christina Lammey. Christina is currently a family nurse practitioner student at Johns Hopkins University. She has experience working as a bedside nurse in neuro and med-surg, which is where I met her. And her work experience includes working internationally as a nurse in Saudi Arabia through COVID-19 pandemic. She's also a yoga and meditation instructor, and she has a passion to fuse yoga and meditation into her nursing practice and prioritize a holistic approach to medicine. So, Christina, welcome to the show.
Hi, Maggie. I'm so happy to be here today.
Yeah.
So cool how our life kind of does this full circle thing where it was years ago when we met. It was just a short assignment for you, and somehow we kept in touch and have connected over different things over the years. So I'm happy to be here today.
And and it our lives have kind of we're going through the same things. Like we both had babies last year. Well, no, in 2022. So well, at the end of, you had Nora in October,
about October 18th. So I think it was almost exactly 1 month before you, right?
Yeah.
She's close to that, I think. So we had babies really close together.
I know. So we just went through new mom life and trying to figure it out and just reconnected. And so it's been great going through this with you this year.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you showed me this. So the way that we're going to recap this episode, Christina showed me this software, this app that she was using, and you can explain it probably a little better, but it's called Year Compass. And it was kind of just a better, New Year's resolutions are you have one resolution and you might follow it for 3 months and then just throw it to the wayside. But this is a really good reflection, a deep dive reflection into your year and what your goals were, and makes you really evaluate what your year looked like. And then it moves into different aspirations for the next year. So it's such a cool, I'm so glad that you showed this to me.
Yeah, a friend of mine showed it to me a few years ago. And since then I've done it every year just because exactly like you're saying, I found it helpful to first reflect on the year prior and then kind of moving forward, thinking about goals. And I remember when I was telling you about it, I was I kept saying, it's so redundant. It's so redundant. But, like we were discussing, one of the positives about it being so redundant is the same ideas keep coming up. And then you're like, wait, I didn't even realize that this was on my mind in so many different areas of my life. And then you keep writing the same things down. And you're like, okay, this is actually what I need to focus on this year, or this is really something that has come up in the past year.
Yeah.
And it's nice that it organizes it out like that.
Yeah.
I like it.
I really didn't, I wouldn't have evaluated the year in this way, I think, if I didn't do this. I think I maybe would have had the same themes about the year. I know my year was busy, but the way that I have assessed it now, I just think I have so much more clarity on what things I could have, what things led to other things, or so Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
like excited to so we're going to go through some of our answers. I was doing this just today. So I have like great answers for like the past year, and then the aspirations, I got nothing for next year. So
You still have time. I feel like it's a
yeah.
little bit early. I did, in preparation for this, I went through it just kind of, um, I mean, it still took me a long time, but kind of quick. And I was like,
Yeah.
at the end of December, I might kind of go through it one more time and just refine a little bit.
Yeah.
So still got a little bit of time here to think about upcoming
Yeah.
goals.
It's definitely not a thing that you can just like, bang out. Like I was trying to do it today because I wanted to talk about it today, but like it's I think, like take time with it because like that's, you're going to make the most use out of it if you like
Yeah, it
really
really
intentionally do it.
it starts out the first page. I think it says like sit. Well, I have it right here. Let me see what it says. It says like sit down, arrive, prepare
All
your tools
right.
and space around you. Close your eyes and take 5 deep breaths. Like I love that it's like set up your space so you're in a
Yeah.
good headspace for this because it is nice to kind of really take a deep dive into what your thoughts are.
Yeah. What's before we get into this, like what have been previous like New Year's resolutions?
I'm okay. I have so many goals, and I think more of what I come back to is like priorities or values. And those are kind of underlying things that I kind of want to work towards. But when I make New Year's resolutions, they're a little bit more silly, I guess. Like this past year, I was like, I'm going to keep my nails painted all year. Like it's just little things that I see people who have their nails painted all the time and mine are never painted. And if they are, it's like half chipped off. And I feel like it doesn't look as professional
You
and
feel put
nice.
together.
Yeah, it's a good way to like just
Yeah, yeah.
feel put together. And I was like, I'm gonna do this, and like my nails are not painted. Like I that
No.
fell off. I got them done right at the beginning of the year, and that was like I
That was
think the
it.
last time.
Oh
So
no.
my resolutions are usually a little bit more like that, where and I have a hard time then sticking with them. I also started out. My husband he grew up in Saudi Arabia, and so his first language is Arabic, and a lot of his family only speak Arabic, and so
Mhm.
I've been trying to learn Arabic, which it's hard for me to retain anything outside of being in NP school right now. I'm just like outside of NP
Yeah.
school, I'm like, I don't want to be like sitting down doing another class
Studying.
or something. So I was trying to do Duolingo, which also I kind of fell off of. So
Yeah. For
those
like
might be upcoming resolutions again. I don't know.
or you can just do away with resolutions and like focus on this stuff because I feel like
Yeah,
this is what is like sticks.
absolutely. Absolutely.
For years, my New Year's resolution was that I was going to relearn French because I used to speak French fluently and
Whoa.
not anymore. I think I know how to say I used to speak French when I was young, and now I don't know it anymore. That's like
Right.
all I know how to say. And the
Yeah.
Pledge of Allegiance, like those that's it. So yeah, that has been but now it's kind of like a joke because I like think about that like, oh, we're gonna relearn French. But you know,
It just
like
keeps coming up. I feel
no,
like the
yeah.
best way, especially if you knew a lot of the language, is really to be there. Like, I feel like your goal should be like, go to France for like an extended period of time. It's like
Yeah.
be there because that's how I feel about Spanish, where I spent so long studying Spanish and I
Hmm.
really should be fluent by now with the amount, like, I'm embarrassed to say how much Spanish I've learned and how bad I am at it. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, I need to be in a Spanish speaking country for an extended period of time. I
Yeah.
can no longer disappoint myself with the goal of like trying to learn Spanish, like,
Well,
through a book or
that's how I
something.
became fluent because I was immersed. I went to like summer school that like you couldn't speak
I
English. You could
didn't know
only
that about you.
speak French. Yeah. And I did it in high school. And then when I didn't think I was going to get into nursing school, I almost took it up as a minor and then I got into nursing school. But yeah. So
Awesome.
I mean, I wish, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like something that like used to know, but yeah.
Languages are so difficult.
Yeah. And they're
Languages are
so,
really
yeah.
difficult.
And another thing, like Spanish would have been so much more helpful in the healthcare field, but whatever.
Yeah, It's
No
always
regrets.
it's so interesting because I was like Spanish would be the best language to learn outside of English, and I kept studying it, and my goal after nursing was like always to work abroad. So I wanted to get a little bit of experience and then find
Yeah.
some way to work abroad, and I thought Spanish was going to really help me. And then I ended up moving to a country that speaks Arabic and nobody speaks Spanish. Like literally, I don't know any person that speaks Spanish in Saudi Arabia. So then
Yeah.
I was like, wait, like, it just it
Didn't
seems
work the
like
way
it's
you wanted.
helpful, and then all of a sudden you're like in a position where I don't know, randomly
Yeah.
everyone's speaking a different language.
Yeah.
So
You think something's going to go one way and then, just life happens differently and it's
yep,
fine.
yep.
So starting out with this year compass, it starts out asking you to go through your calendar, go through your whole calendar, and this is the 2022 compass. And so the 2023 one hasn't come out yet. So we're going through the 2022 one. And so when it comes out, then you can, have experience it with fresh eyes and we won't ruin it for you. So it starts out asking you to go week by week through your calendar. And if you see an important event, family gathering, friendly get together, or significant project, to write it down. So, did anything in there strike you as you were doing that exercise?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that in past years, I've always had, sorry, I have like the physical thing. I like printed it. I did old
Yeah,
school,
girl.
pen and paper, but I was looking through my calendar, and normally, like, I have traveled a lot in the past few years, and it's just something that I've really prioritized. And so in the past when I've done it, it's really, I've broken up my year a lot by trips that I've taken, places that I've
Mm,
seen. And I felt like this year I looked back and just being like
home.
it's bombarded, like it's school, or it's like I'm
Yeah.
traveling. I flew a ton, but it's just back and forth from Saudi to here. My husband still works in Saudi Arabia, so
Yeah.
I have to come back here for clinicals. So we flew back and forth 4 times. So it was like flew to Saudi, flew back from Saudi, and then in between all that, it's like I'm in school. We're not really having any time to do too much stuff. So I was a
Yeah.
little bit bummed to kind of look back and be like, I feel like I've traveled a lot, but it's just the same trip over and over again.
Like
But that's just
routine.
kind of our life right
Yeah.
now. But we did get to do a couple trips. So we went to Dubai a couple times. We went to Bahrain a couple times. And those are just like, little weekend trips you can do from Saudi Arabia that are pretty easy. And then I just wrote down my friend had a baby and
Mm,
Nora turned one. And so little things like that um, have been exciting.
yeah.
How about you? What are some things looking back?
So I knew that, so like at the end of this year, I feel tired. Like I'm exhausted. Like, and but
I feel
I
you.
like I said, before I had done this exercise, I wouldn't have like really thought about the year as much as I did as I went through this exercise. And, in the, like I put all of our like nursing Uncharted episodes like into my calendar. And so I was adding those in and I filled up the whole page by like May or June, and because there was just my entire calendar is filled with like meetings and calls and like episodes and stuff, and I'm working full time, and I it really like I took a beat and I was like, and it made me see I worked on my birthday. I had no events for like Father's Day, Mother's Day planned, and like things that really like hobbies and things that I enjoy were always thrown in. Like it was never like a scheduled thing that I wanted to, that I planned for myself. It was always like things that really filled my cup were just kind of sporadically, put in here and there. And, so that was, you know, seeing that, like actually seeing that. I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that I
You're like,
get it.
that's why I'm tired right now. That's why, like, I feel exhausted.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
really I prioritized. I didn't prioritize myself, I think, or like my mental health or like physical health. Like there
Wow.
was nothing on the calendar for physical health. I did like one cold plunge and one sauna thing, and that wasn't on there. I maybe hiked like once or twice and like ran maybe a handful of times in the whole year. And
I
like,
just relate to this so much. Like
yeah,
everything you're saying is exactly what came up for me, where it was like I didn't prioritize self care enough. I didn't
yeah,
prioritize self care enough. Next year, like when I was like looking forward, I'm like, prioritize self care. Like it, and I
yeah,
think that is a true reflection of just us being in this same situation of being new moms. Like I think this
yeah,
is maybe the transition of being first year moms and realizing that we don't have the same amount of time, but we do have the same amount of responsibilities outside of that. And so just prioritizing from there is what I'm learning how to do and
yeah.
still kind of struggling because
Yeah, like
I'm
just
always
put it on
dealing
the
with it.
calendar,
Yeah,
because like it's not going to put itself on the calendar or like it's something nobody else is going to prioritize your mental health like you are because nobody
absolutely.
else knows your workload like you do. So
Absolutely.
like yeah, I think that was another one thing that I was just doing too much. I was just doing like, there was one so I had a close friend of mine pass away to terminal cancer
Oh
at
no,
the end of in October.
that's so
Um,
tough.
and this one day like really struck me because I did 3 meetings that day. And then I went to her funeral. And I'm like, why did I do that? Like I can't believe that I did that looking back on that. Like,
Yeah.
I was putting pressure on myself that I needed to get these things done and I was just going to like compartmentalize it and get these meetings done, but like
I relate
at
to
what
this.
cost? Like, I should have rested that day. It made no
Dude,
sense. Like, nobody's pushing me to do these things, but it's like, it's me, you
it's
know?
learning how to set boundaries, right? Which is, it becomes so much more evident once you have a baby. Like, I think before we can kind of get away with it somehow, but then you have a child and then your time becomes significantly less and significantly more valuable because you're like, you want to be spending that time with your baby, right? And so I, when I had Noor, the day after, so I was TAing a class and with the most amazing professors who were so understanding. And if I would have just told them, hey, I had a baby, I won't be able to finish this grading. Can you help me out? They would have been like happy to do so. But I just couldn't get past like, I want to do this. I was in the hospital grading these assignments like one day after giving birth. And I think back to that and I'm just like, what was I thinking? Why was that my mentality? And like, how can I change that for the future where I just, set those sort of boundaries that I don't know. I prioritize my time a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah. Just like letting go of some of those expectations and like, yeah, just putting yourself first. So yeah, that was just like a huge eye opener for me, like writing down. Originally, I was like, oh, this is going to take forever writing down all these things. But I'm like, I'm so glad that they start out like that because it was very informative.
It is hard sometimes to think like, oh, I don't want to go back through the past year. Like I don't get as motivated off of, I like to reflect on myself like as a human, but I don't like to reflect on past events somehow. Like
Yeah.
I even have a hard time like looking through like really old photos like for a long time. Like I don't know. I like to I'm definitely more of like a futuristic thinker,
Hmm.
but the process of reflecting on the past and the way that it forces you to do, I definitely learn a lot and it makes things a little bit more clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of the after you go through that, then they have, a couple different, evaluations of the year based on what you found. What was one of the biggest lessons that you've learned?
Oh, let me find this.
I think, well, I can tell you mine. I think I may have already said it, but what I thought is that, this is a lesson that I think I have to continue to relearn. But like I said, like no one is going to lessen my load. Like I have to be the gatekeeper of what I bring into my life. And like I need to recognize when I need rest. Like nobody can take care of me better than I can because nobody knows that burden like better than me. And like, especially if you're good at something, like opportunities are just going to be coming back, keep coming at you. And like, you have to know what you can handle.
It's
So,
it's so hard to say no to things that you like and enjoy and that bring you a lot of joy, but then also somehow burden your life.
yeah.
I think I wrote something very similar, just like a little bit less well said. Like I feel like how you said that was so well, but basically I was saying like it's the biggest lesson I learned that is that it's really hard to find time for yourself as a mom. Like I just this past year I've had so much respect for parents and just the time that it takes, and I think that a lot of people who are parents and are able to balance that well with like their job and their like
Yeah.
physical fitness. It's I'm
I
so
don't know.
impressed by it.
Yeah.
And I hope that I can, coming up this year can find that balance a little bit better.
Agreed. I would love to be able to find time for fitness. I think that that is like something that I've always struggled with, like body image and like being able to incorporate that into my life. I think like that would be like such a big accomplishment for me to be able to figure that balance out.
I completely agree. And I think this for me to be able to prioritize it, so much of the situation needs to be right where I need to have like a workout that I like, I need
Mhm.
access to that workout, I need the time for it, and when I'm in a situation where it's not like perfect, it's really hard for me to like kind of go out of my way to make sure
Yeah.
that happens. And that's exactly what happened this year for me. And then also like, I mean, people talk about mom guilt all the time, and I just feel like the way that that plays into my life is,
Yeah.
I mean, my own mom guilt, right? My own mom
Mhm.
guilt of, you know, feeling like, when I'm going to clinicals, like this week I'm going to clinicals like 6 out of 7 days, right? And my parents are watching my son
Oh
every
my
single
god.
day, right? So I'm like,
Yeah.
how after, if there's a yoga class at night, how am I going to come home after they've watched him all day and then take time for myself, right? They've
Yeah.
just like sacrificed so much of their time. So then I have this kind of mom guilt of being like,
Yeah.
how do I take time for myself when other people are sacrificing so much for me, and then I never make time for myself. So finding
Hmm.
that, I think it's what I've thought about is that I just need to plan better, and I need to like ahead of time be like, okay, this day, I might need a little bit more time from you or something. So
Do you have any 6 out of 7 days at clinic days? That's
it's
wild.
kind of unusual, and it's just also because I pushed my clinicals off towards the end of the semester so I could
Mm,
stay in Saudi Arabia longer.
okay.
So I've kind of done it to myself.
Okay.
And it's okay. It'll be fine. But
Yeah. I was
I
just
think it's
wondering
I
if
think
you
it's
could
probably
like
harder for my parents, to watch a 1-year-old that whole time.
yeah. Bless them.
Yeah,
Gosh, we could have a whole conversation on support systems. I don't know what I
honestly,
would yeah, seriously.
honestly.
What was your biggest surprise of the year?
Oh, let's see. The biggest surprise. Oh, I had a hard time thinking about this because this past year has just, like I was saying, been so filled with like predictable things. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I wrote pregnancy. Too soon to bring it up?
It's not too soon. I
Yeah.
wanted to bring it up
um,
because same.
yeah.
We're I am pregnant also.
It's so exciting to be pregnant at the same time again. Like I cannot
Surprise.
I can't even believe it. Like when it was just such a crazy thing the way we found out too, where we had kind of talked a little bit before both of us got pregnant, and then
Yeah.
we both fell off for like a
We
few
did for
months. And
like
I was like, I remember thinking like I should like message Maggie and just be like, I'm so sorry. Like my first trimester was rough. And so finally we reconnected, and I said that I was like, I'm
you
so
like came up for
sorry.
air. And
like
you're
I
like,
was struggling the past few months with like this pregnancy, and you were
I
just
was
like,
like,
the way you were laughing, I knew you're pregnant. Like you didn't even say it yet. You just started laughing, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's pregnant.
literally, both of our firstborns are like a month from each other, and our secondborns are gonna be a month from each other. We're
It
just doing
is
everything at the same time.
awesome. It is awesome. That's what I wrote for the biggest surprise. It wasn't
Yeah,
totally unplanned, but it wasn't like,
same.
it was just kind of in between. This is how our first pregnancy kind of went to, where my husband and
Yeah.
I, like, unlike so many people I know who are like, they have an exact time that they want to get pregnant. Like,
Mm,
they don't want to get pregnant. They don't want to get pregnant. And then they're like, oh, I want to be pregnant. Like now we had
yeah.
like, we were like a little bit more lax about it, which then you end up getting pregnant. Like for us, it was like a little bit sooner than I had
Yeah.
originally anticipated, but then the timing is always right. Was it planned for you guys?
It was pretty similar situation. Like we weren't, like so my siblings and I are all 18 months apart. So it wasn't, abnormal for me. Like I was ready. Like I was like, okay, anytime after now, I think I would, be ready. And then it happened and we're like, oh, okay, we're doing this.
No, that feeling is like the most hilarious thing to me, where you're like, that was the same for us, where we, like, both of us have siblings that are pretty close to us in age. And so we knew we wanted Nor to have like a sibling close in age. And then like, and so you're like, yeah, it's fine. Like theoretically, it's fine. And then you find out, you're like, oh, wait, what?
Well,
Oh, okay.
I mean, the shift between like the last first trimester and this first trimester, wildly
Shocking,
different.
right? Yeah.
Shocking
Yeah.
how different. And like I had nausea and hunger pains before, and bloating and constipation and restless legs and all of the first trimester things that you're like, this is a whirlwind of things that they don't tell you about.
Yeah.
But like doing it with a toddler
I
is a
agree.
whole nother ball game,
It
because like,
really is.
yeah, you are so completely fatigued, and that it was so triggering for me. I have been experiencing like mood swings, like, crazy, that, I is definitely related to like extreme fatigue.
For sure.
And then I'm also at the same time I'm losing my milk supply. And so like those two hormone shifts have like really affected my mental health that I
Hmm.
did not anticipate like
Hmm.
before. Like I've never experienced depression. I've been really fortunate in that way, and it hit me so hard in these last few weeks where, I mean, it is paralyzing. Like sometimes, and you just don't have any control over it. It's a
Hmm.
hormone shift. So like, all of a sudden, I will say it was triggered by fatigue though, because I would be, you know, and like I would only get 8 hours or something of sleep, which is normally fine. But, I would just be so dead. And then, if I was banking on a nap or something, her to nap, and then she doesn't nap, I would just go into this like paralyzing depression where I could not do anything. And like,
Yeah.
Matt was the default parent for like weeks. And like, she stopped saying mama for like a couple weeks. Like, and which was so upsetting and like so hard for me, because like, I just wasn't, I was there, but not there.
Yeah.
Like,
I
I,
It's so hard to be in that situation with your kid, because you're like I'm this person for you, and why can't I like
yeah,
get energy to like smile and do things and play with
yeah,
you, and it's like it makes things so much worse. Like you're already feeling bad, and then you start to have this guilty feeling where you're like, I'm not doing enough for my kid, right? And
yeah.
I mean, easier said than done. You just have to have a lot of grace for yourself and realize that like your body's going through a lot. But of course, no matter how much you tell yourself that, it never really sinks in, right?
Yeah, it's like I'm just like I was just hoping that, once I get out of the first trimester, this will like turn a corner. Like that's what
Mhm.
I've been like banking on this whole time. And like I'd be upstairs and I would be like in bed, and in my mind I would be like screaming like, get up. You have
Yeah.
to get up.
Yeah.
And like you just can't. And like
It is so
should they be
horrible.
playing downstairs, and like like I would want to be down there with them, and I just like could not go down there. And like it's something that I had never experienced before. Just like apathy,
Yeah.
complete apathy. Like
Yeah.
not even like sadness, but just like nothing, like numbness.
Yeah. I also went through something similar. I had kind of mentioned some of it to you, but basically there was this point, it was like late at night and I had been with Lenore the whole day. In Saudi, we don't have support. So it's just me and my husband, and
Yeah.
um he works full time. So like I'm with Nora all the time, which is fine usually, except when you're feeling this way and you're just like,
Yeah.
I just kept thinking like, I need to be with my parents. Like I need somebody else to watch him because I'm
Yeah.
not doing a good job right now. Like I'm
Yeah.
not teaching him anything. I'm not interacting with him. Like I felt so bad. And then I also was just like, you know, we get a lot of our energy from self-care or time that we get to spend by
Yeah.
ourselves that's productive, that's not like lying in bed and like, you know, not feeling apathetic. It's like we get our energy through doing the things that we like, and when you don't even have energy to do the things that you like,
Yeah.
then it feels so much worse. And yeah, I was sitting up at one night and I was like doing a depression screening on myself because I was like, I really
Yeah.
feel like I'm clinically depressed right now. I and you know, I also like, you know, being nurses and knowing kind of how like our body works, I think part of me too was like, I'm feeling this way. I know it's short term and I know this is related to pregnancy. So I know it will pass, which I think
Yeah.
gave me some sort of comfort. But it,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't make it any less like hurtful to. And so I'm doing it. I'm like,
Yeah.
little interest in pleasure activities. I'm like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do
Mhm.
anything. Right before I got pregnant, I was like, in finally postpartum. It was like so long of me like not being able to get into a good routine, and I felt like I was like going to the gym every morning. I was like my husband and I got in a good routine with being able to figure out how to take care of Nor and both find time for ourselves. And
Yeah.
then afterwards, instead of waking up early to go to the gym, I was like, yeah, you can watch him. I'm just going to stay in bed. And I
Yeah.
love the mornings. And so it was like to not
Mm.
enjoy the mornings anymore, to be like, I don't even want to get out of bed. It's like
Yeah.
something's wrong here. And it's not just, I don't know. It's
It's
so
why
complicated.
it's crazy to go through that alone too, and like to have no support system over there. I can't imagine. It's amazing. Like you're such a
It,
strong person to be able to like, go through all of that.
having a kid just makes you realize how much you need people in your life, right? I really don't think two people were meant to do it. It's really quite a lot. So I don't know. I just see the value of my parents so much. I see the value of having other moms, like being able to connect with you and just other
Yeah.
moms who are going through things, I think has been really helpful. But just realizing that you're not alone in this. We're not
Yeah.
alone in this, you know?
Definitely talking to other moms helped because I felt like, okay, actually this is apparent for a lot of people, and
Yeah.
it's not just a short-term thing for a lot of people. Like I was
Yeah.
really fortunate to not have gone through postpartum depression, but like that's so common. And you know i'm i I'm almost in a way like grateful that I have experienced what other people have been going through, though, because I feel like I can so empathize on how just completely debilitating it is, and like I have an understanding before that I didn't before.
This is always the silver lining with it, especially being nurses. And I'm doing a clinical rotation in OB right now, and I love it. And I just feel like all of these frustrating symptoms, um, it's not fun, but I always think I'm so grateful I can empathize with people better
Yeah.
because I truly didn't know how to empathize before that. Like when people, I mean, depression maybe a little bit I could empathize with, but little things like I'm not little things. I was nauseous through the first trimester completely, and
Yeah.
I didn't have
Me
any my
too.
first pregnancy. And so I was like, I really couldn't understand when people were like, "Oh, my first trimester is like it's so tough because I'm nauseous, I'm vomiting, blah blah blah." And I'm like,
Hmm.
it's not that bad. Pregnancy, I literally felt like, oh, pregnancy is not that bad. And then I went through this and I'm like, wow, I feel like this is just some some sort of blessing to like
Yeah.
put me in my place of being like, if you want to work with this patient population, you need to be
Yeah.
able to empathize with what they're going through. So
Yeah. Absolutely. I know. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, and everybody has to go through it. And
I know.
the people that have those symptoms all throughout their pregnancy, or like the people that throw up every day, freaking
Yes,
bless you.
I
I don't
know.
know how you maintain your sanity,
I
like,
know.
and
People would
be,
Yeah, because you
yeah,
hear about that. You hear like, oh, well, most of the time it goes away by the end of the first trimester, but some people have it through their whole pregnancy. Wow,
mm-mm,
that's because I think the like lack of motivation, the feelings of depression, really came from the nausea for me. Like hormones, probably because I just feel like I'm pretty sensitive to my hormone changes, but
yeah,
really it was the nausea that was debilitating, that I was like, I can't do anything right now. You
yes,
don't want to eat
yeah.
anything, you don't want to cook anything. It's
No. I know, you're just on autopilot. I feel like I just ate, like, frozen burritos and that's, like,
Yeah,
another thing, like, you wanna eat healthy while you're in the first trimester. It's,
I
like, such
know.
a, like, it's so annoying because, like, you're nauseous and you don't wanna eat anything, but it's also such a pivotal time for your baby's, like, development and growth, and so you're like, "Okay, I need to eat well, but physically cannot eat anything." Like, so, like, are they gonna be
Just to
okay?
make the situation more complex, it's like you're also trying
Yeah,
to send the right nutrients to your baby.
more
So,
guilt.
oh, I ate ramen noodles for like a week straight, and I was so bad. I googled like, should you like, is it okay if I eat ramen noodles for a week straight? And everyone on this like one Reddit feed was like, you probably shouldn't. Like, it's a high carbs, high sodium, like all this stuff. And one person on there was like, listen,
Go
like if
girl.
you're in your first trimester, like there's worse things you can eat than ramen. And I was like, held
Listening to
on to
her.
that. That was like the one thing
Yeah,
that I
right.
held on to. I was like, okay, I'm gonna eat
Genius. Yeah.
it.
Oh my god. That's amazing. All right, let's keep going. What are so in the past year? We're still in the past year, and we'll move to. Gosh, this thing is so long. I want to go through. We'll just do a couple more from the past year. Let's see. What is the best thing that you have discovered about yourself?
Okay, you go first so I can find this.
I found, I discovered that if something seems really difficult or even impossible for somebody else, it does not have to be impossible for me. I think I found, like, I realized that like there's so many different ways to do something, and like it's okay to do something that just makes sense for you. Like, I choose that narrative for myself, and if I feel a different type of way about something, like, it's fine. And, like, I think that happened a few times last year. Like, we did cloth diapering for, a little bit. Like,
Respect.
until
That's
she was,
awesome.
like, too chunky to fit into the cloth diapers,
I
then
got cloth diapers, and people were like, "You're never gonna use them," and I was like,
that's
"Yes,
what
I
people
am."
said,
I didn't
yeah.
use them. I wish maybe next one I will, since I have all these now.
I mean, I liked it. It wasn't, like, stinky, like, everybody was, like, deterring me about it, like, they were clean, like, they came out clean in the wash, like, there was it didn't, like, it saved us money, it saved us a
Yeah,
ton of money, especially, like, when she was really young and she was just, like, pooping that mustard, like, all the
yeah,
time.
and it's good for
Like,
the environment. Like,
yeah.
there's so many benefits to it, and I don't know. I wish I could say that I also did that, though I didn't. But my thought with it was like, people have done cloth diapers for a really long time. Like,
Yeah,
it's
and they're
more
not like
new to have to throw away the diaper every single time. And it's really convenient for us, but
yeah.
just a little bit less convenient. And it's really helpful. Like, if everyone did cloth diapers, that would probably be really good for the world.
Yeah.
But
Well, and it was nice because if we were running low, we just had to do laundry. We didn't
mhm.
have to like run out and get new diapers. So it was nice in that way. Um, I also didn't get an epidural when I
Wait,
went through
did you
birth.
not? I didn't get an epidural. I can't believe we
Girl, we're the
haven't
same
talked about this,
person.
because I feel like there's not a lot of people in my life that haven't gotten epidurals, and I really
Yeah.
hold on to like being able to connect with somebody who didn't, because I always say I would never recommend it to anyone who doesn't want to do it, because it's
Yeah.
not it's not easy by any
No.
means, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm like, you should do whatever, like, your goal should be have a birth that makes you happy, or at least aim towards that, because you
Yes.
can't control so much. So if you know that you're not the type of
Yes.
person to want that, but if you do have that inkling towards it, like, I love to like connect with people. So I'm so surprised we haven't talked about this yet.
Yeah.
Wow.
I felt more afraid of I felt like it would give me more control in a
Mhm.
sense.
Mhm.
Like I can deal with if I can train myself to be aware of the pain. Like
Mhm.
if I can, people do it. So like if
Mhm.
I can be one of those people that do it, I feel like I can be more in control of the situation because I know how this will go down. Because like, the more like interventions that you do, the more, opportunities there are for other things to happen. So like
Absolutely.
I was just like, I feel like I could be more in control if I didn't. I could like move around, which I wanted to do. Like if I felt like a position was good, I wanted to be able to move in that position. And I didn't want to be hooked up to a bunch of things. And, so it just made sense. I mean, a lot of people were like, not shaming, but being like, what do you have to prove? And like,
Yes.
that's not what I
Yes.
was, like, I don't have anything to
Like,
prove. I'm
why would
trying
you
to,
choose to put yourself in pain? Like, I
right.
would definitely get that from people, where if
Yeah.
you I find that when people don't have the interest in wanting to do it, then it does, you feel kind of bad after talking, where you're like, okay, like, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I will like I didn't want to offend anybody by like
yeah,
not wanting what they wanted,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like that so I kind of like, I would like steer away from the topic about it, until it happened and then like afterwards, when people asked if I would get the epidural, I would say no and people would be like shocked, but like, you plan for it and like your
absolutely,
headspace is there. And I also like didn't not want one. I was
yeah,
just like I don't know what to expect. I don't know
hmm,
what I'm going into. I'm going to try and prep for not having one. But if I absolutely need it, I'm just trying to walk out of here not traumatized. So,
yes.
like, I just want to have a good birth. So, like, if I can do that, without, great. If I need the epidural, fine. Like, that.
This is exactly how I went into it. And I
Yeah.
remember reading people's advice about it and being like, if you don't 100% commit to it, you won't do it. And I'm not like, I think maybe some people are like that, but I'm not like that, where I'm like, I think I was able to do it without an epidural, because I always gave myself the option that if I needed it, I would get it. Like, I had some
Hmm.
criteria for like, what was easiest for me was like, let me prepare for not getting an epidural. And then
Yeah.
I had some criteria to be like, I mean, kind of vague, but like, if my labor is like like really long,
Yeah.
if I have to get induced, I might consider it, because I hear like induction, like the pains from that is like a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, um,
Same. I
I
like had
think,
the
and I don't
same.
think it doesn't hurt anyone to prepare for that, because you do hear of the occasional, I don't want to scare anyone out there, but you do hear of the occasional story where somebody wants to get an epidural and it's too late, or like,
Yeah.
or it doesn't work or something. So I think just preparing for labor in general is helpful. And it's kind of a nice
Yeah.
process during pregnancy. Like, that was one of the things that I loved about pregnancy, is that when you have that mentality, you are more aware of wanting to connect with your body and wanting to be in tune with like different sensations so that when the time
Yeah.
comes. So it kind of made pregnancy enjoyable for me in that way as well.
Yeah. Certainly, yeah, like prepping and having classes like that just like, empowers you and makes you feel like, what
Yeah,
you're going into, like what you should expect.
absolutely.
What are you most grateful for in the past year?
Let me see. I mean, I should know these just off the top of my head. Okay, I see. I wrote my family. This year has just been so family filled where like having a baby this year and then seeing my parents connect with my baby and their support in my life has been like just so eye-opening. Like I always loved my parents, but it really gives you a different perspective of everything that they did for you. And then on top of
Yeah.
that, now how much they're doing for Noor and how much Noor really loves them. And yeah, just my family support. And then my relationship with my husband, like it's not easy for us to be apart as much as we are. If you told me
Yeah.
like 4 years ago, like if you asked me 4 years ago, like, would you ever do a relationship where you guys were long distance like half the year, I'd be like, absolutely not. I could never do long distance. Like, but then
Yeah.
you're in certain situations. It's like, I either stop school or we make this work how it has, how it has to be. So we did it and it's doable. It's hard the first year of having a baby because it takes so much more communication, right? You have a baby and on top of that, you have to communicate with your spouse more and so, yeah, learning how to communicate with my husband through the travel and through having a baby, I feel really appreciative of because I think
Yeah.
it's we've grown together through it instead of I know it can be really difficult for a lot of couples. And that's not to say we didn't have difficult conversations and difficult moments and stuff, but overall I think it's all been like in a positive direction.
Yeah. Having that strong foundation,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
is so important. I am the same, every time I think about, gratitude, it's always Matt, Matt, he's always like the forefront. Like I said before, I mean, he was the default parent like these last
Yeah.
few weeks and, he just like carried our family and stepped up
Yeah.
and because there was no other option and like I wasn't available, and
Dude,
like he just does it. He just picks it up and like,
having a good partner through all this is so important,
yeah,
right? Like yeah, during tough times like that, it's really you start thinking you're like, I was cooking every day. I was home every day with Nora. I was like, I should be doing more. I should be doing the laundry. I should be cooking
yeah,
every day. I should be this. For like a month straight, like my husband was like bringing home food for us and doing everything. He never complained. And I was just like, I kept being like, I'm sorry. Like I know I don't need to apologize, but then at the same time, and then you realize that you're with somebody who empathizes and who wants the best
yeah,
for you, and it makes it all possible.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's so, yeah, it changes your whole life. Finding a good partner is like make or break the
Absolutely.
difficult, the challenges in your life. So, yeah, I lean on him immensely. And my family too. I mean, yeah, like I said, I think I skirted past postpartum depression because of the support system I had. Like
Yeah.
my family is like my dad is very close. Everybody like all of, our parents are all in Virginia. Everybody's just like will drop anything and like come help us.
Beautiful.
It's yeah, it really is like invaluable when you have kids,
Hmm.
you know.
For
And
sure.
like community too. I mean, so this year I've been so grateful of like where I live. I have been lucky enough to find a neighborhood. Our neighborhood is like only a couple years old. And so there's a lot of new families and it just so happens there's like 5 or 6 other like first time moms that are like the same age. We all have kids from like Val's the youngest and like the oldest is like 4. And
That's
so
awesome.
like we just, to have a group of people that are going through the same thing that are in the same vicinity, it's like that you like hanging out with. I mean, it's
So important.
invaluable to
It's
have.
so
Yeah. And I
important.
feel so lucky to have that community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't really have that much in Saudi right now because of how much we're traveling back and forth. But I am like, once we're grounded, once we're settled somewhere, I just see the value of it so much since I haven't had it that I'm like, this is the priority. Like before anything else, I need to make some friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on back to Virginia. I
I
guess
know.
you were never in
I
Virginia, you're in
know.
DC.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you close to DC?
No, I'm in Virginia,
Yeah.
like
Part of
like
Virginia.
2 hours
Okay.
south.
Okay.
Yeah. All
Gotcha.
right. So let's shift gears and let's move to the year ahead, 2024.
Let's
What
do
does
it.
that year ahead for you look like? What's going to happen in an ideal case?
Okay. All right. So there's some just regular things of life, I guess, that this is my last year of NP school. So, so long as everything goes well, I'll graduate in May. Also, my due date's in May. So, also,
Oh my
God willing, everything
gosh.
goes fine. I'll also, have baby number 2 in May. Um, from there, it's a little bit up in the air. If we had like another 3 hours, I could tell you about like everything that I don't know about what's going to happen in my life. But basically, um, yeah, it's this complex sort of thing where we're going to have 2 kids, and my family support is so important. At the same time, like my husband is, he works in Saudi Arabia, and we like it there in
Mm,
other ways, right? So we're kind of like, okay, so after I graduate, do we try and move here? Do we stay there? And we kind of just decided that for right now, especially having, a baby that's not, by the time I graduate and pass my boards, hopefully, pray for me that I'll pass my boards.
You'll
But
pass that.
like, we're gonna have like a 3 or 4 month old, and I'm like, do I want to be the one that's like working all the time, or should we stay in Saudi for a little bit longer? My husband can keep working, and of course he would
Mm,
work here too, but the transition is harder, right? Like
yeah.
it would take some time, and to do all that when we have 2 young ones, I'm like, maybe it makes more sense for me us to be in Saudi Arabia for a little bit longer. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what we decided on now, which it was so stressful for me because I think when you don't commit to something where you're just like, it could go in 10 different directions, you're
Yeah.
left like not knowing how to plan your future. And I just was
Yeah.
paralyzed with this, where I was like, I don't even know what to do today because I don't know where we're going to be in a year. And once we kind of committed to that, I was like able to refocus, where I think,
Yeah.
the struggles with that for me is that they don't really have nurse practitioners. So I'm going to school for this thing where
Mm,
we're going to be living somewhere where they have some. I think I would need experience. And I could maybe like leverage my skills to do something in management or leadership. But at the same time, I kind of was like, I have a lot of interest outside of, working as a nurse,
yeah.
within like health and wellness and stuff. So
Yeah.
I was like, if we stay another year in Saudi Arabia, I could really focus on being with being with our kids, and then also some other like little projects.
Yeah, I was thinking like, is there a market there for like yoga and meditation? Because like you could hone
Yeah,
in on that. And then like if you wanted to come back to the US, just like use that experience to like really create a holistic, approach to your
for sure.
practitioner practice.
And yoga and meditation is what I want for the foundation of my own life. Like I want to have like that, like daily practice that, I've since lost since having Noor and everything.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's part of what's in my head, where I'm like, maybe this would be, if graduated, had a newborn, and went straight into working, I know once again my self care would take a back seat. And
Yeah.
in some ways, I felt like I kind of mourned the loss of thinking, oh, I'm going to work as an NP, because there's so much motivation that comes from that too. Like I was like,
Yeah,
there's so many
right.
job opportunities, and then letting that go was a little bit tough. But then, kind of woke up this other side of me that was like, the reality is that, Christina, you've been putting off self-care and different things, and
Yeah.
maybe this is the year that you can kind of focus on some of that stuff. So yeah, my first and foremost thing would be to focus on my own like meditation, yoga practice, and then also maybe try and teach some in Saudi. They just opened this new yoga studio really close to where I live. That's like the bomb. Like
Mm,
I love it so much. So
that's awesome.
that's like the one thing that I'm like really excited for.
I really admire your ability to, I mean, maybe you're just like forced into doing this, but like, like with the nurse practitioner school, like, yeah, you see so many opportunities and you like have that maybe stress of being like, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to do this other thing. But like, making that decision to do that and like knowing that that's okay, like it's just part
Yeah.
of life. It's just the, stage of life that you're going through and like, you know, understanding that and that like not having that expectation, like not keeping that guilt on your shoulder that like you should be, doing something else.
It is it's really hard because you my program was 4 years. Like I
Yeah.
through this program, not only the money of the tuition, but like also the money from flying back and forth all the time to sustain me going to
Yeah.
school, and like, our relationship, our family, and everything. So it, there's part of me that's like, what did I even do? What am I doing right now? Right. Like, but the other side of me that's like kind of understands maybe deeper sides of myself that's like, actually, this is exactly what you need, Christina, because like do not in any way, like even if I never work as a nurse practitioner, I think that this education was so worth it. It built my confidence and my
Yeah.
motivation in a lot of different ways. Um, it's kind of hard to explain, but little things like I just feel so much more confident in my knowledge, my ability to talk about health, and
Mhm.
like I've talked about with you, like my real passion. I think that it's easy to get distracted when so I'm holding my chapstick. It's easy to get distracted, actually, like when you're in this situation and you kind of have the next thing lined up. And that's what I
Yeah.
was kind of attached to, where I was like, should I be doing a residency after this for a year?
Mhm.
And then I can get a job, and then I can do this. And, it's all lined up. And it kind of forced me to think outside of the box on like, what can I do with this education? And it
Mhm.
actually, in ways, is more in tune with like who I am, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm wanting to connect like my knowledge of health and somehow yoga, meditation. And so I'm like brainstorming ways that I can do that I know I would never be able to do if I never
Yeah.
went to school to be a nurse practitioner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think we just get stuck on this like short-term goal setting, It's like you have the degree, you've done all of this stuff. Even if you go off and do something else for a year in order to bring that experience in, you're cultivating your practice and honing it for the long term,
Yep.
like
Yep.
if you're thinking about the long game, like you're so right. You're doing everything right that's in line with who you are and who you're trying to be, who you're trying to,
For
what you're
sure.
trying to accomplish. So,
For sure.
you're on the right track for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. How is your year looking this upcoming year? What are you thinking?
I, this year ahead looks hopeful. I think that it is going to be focused more on like, focusing inward, realigning priorities. Like I said before, I want to add things to the calendar that fill my cup and that, I want to, you know, put things instead of just sporadically on there. I'm going to plan, you know, something for Father's Day or like plan something for my birthday and just like be intentional about the time I spend with my family and friends and, cultivating those relationships. And I think from a work standpoint, in the process of trying to be a Clin 3. So I'm like working on those things. I'm like, climbing that ladder. I'm being a part of some different projects and committees. I'm the chair of this one committee at work called the Wisdom and Wellbeing committee, which kind of like bleeds into what I like doing already, right? It's like, it's this program that it trains nurses and coworkers to identify stress on a continuum. So you're kind of able to identify coworkers who are like really going through stressors that aren't able to like bounce back from those things like they normally do, because we all work in, like such stressful, high stress environments in the ICU. So being able to identify those people before it becomes a crisis, before it becomes like, like clinical depression or burnout or, mental illness. And then kind of, being an ear, being support for those people, and then trying to give them access to the resources that we have at our hospital.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's a great, and
That
this
sounds
like program is just something that we had started. And I was like, if I'm going to be chair of a committee, this seems like pretty in my wheelhouse. So
yes,
like,
absolutely.
I'm excited to like focus on that and kind of bring some, mental health and well-being that I want to do in my like outside life, and to like bring it into to work.
Hmm.
One thing actually that I started back in August, I started doing 5-minute meditations before our shift
I
starts
love that.
at 18:53. Yeah, because I work nights.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I started, and I got a couple people that like come and do it with me, but most of the
Oh,
time it's just like myself.
that's awesome though. Wait, I
But
love
it's
this.
it's just a great way to like, reset before the shift and like,
Hmm.
have a change in mindset and, just like change your mood, change your tone. And
This is like
yeah.
something I definitely am interested in, and something that we should just brainstorm further someday about, because I feel like um, I love reading like self help books and, hearing motivational things. And I often feel like they're not geared towards nurses, where it's like, I read like the 5 a.m. club, and they're like, yeah, you wake up at 5 a.m. and you should do all this before whatever. And I'm just like, but what if you work night shift, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're like, how do you implement certain strategies when you live a life that is not the like 9 to 5, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've often thought about that, like trying to help nurses. And then also now being a mom, I'm like, so much of this has fallen off in my own life since being a mom, because I can't find time for things. And
Yeah.
so how do you implement some of these, like, I hate to call it self help, but like self help strategies, where it's just like, how do
Yeah.
you better your
Tools.
life? Tools, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. In these sort of non traditional situations.
Yeah. How do you apply
So
it
I
to
love that you're
nurses?
doing that, at work.
Well,
And
I got the idea from somebody that we had on the podcast, Stephanie Hutchins. She's a life coach, and I met her at NurseCon at Sea,
very
and
cool.
she was speaking about, she's got a couple books on post traumatic growth and what that looks like, and kind of clawing your way out of like a dark space. And from her own experience, she's gone through a lot of trauma in her life and processed it, and is living like such an amazing, thriving life now. And so she like talks about some of the strategies that she used. And so like we did 2 episodes, we did a part 1 and part 2 this year about some of those strategies, and then we applied them to nurses. So it
Love
was like
that.
it was a great little 2-part series. You should check it out. She's
Yeah, I
amazing.
definitely will.
Yeah.
That sounds
We
really
had a
cool.
lot of great episodes this year. You know, I've like been very proud of what we've been able to accomplish this year. Like I think some of the most powerful conversations from the podcast have happened this year. Like it's just been really nice to like get a front row seat to some like real progressive change that is happening in the profession, and like
Yeah.
people come and want to share that with us on our platform, and like that's so humbling. And for me, like I talked to the director of St. Jude, Morgan Melanson. She talked about her nurse residency program, that they like completely revamped, and all of their new grads, over like the last 2 years, nobody has left, nobody has changed jobs, because like when you get hired to St. Jude, you get hired into the program, not to like a specific unit, and they rotate like docs to like every different hospital in the unit to, every different unit in the hospital to figure out what they like, and then there's like a matching process, and like they've like retained all their nurses. I'm like, what a amazing, like so progressive and like
Like
unconventional,
that is
you
really
know?
awesome. You guys before like have this platform for nurses to share stuff like that, because I really do think it's hard to get that information across, right? Of course, like people are staying up to date with research and different things, but you know,
Yeah.
how like something so effective like that people need to
Yeah.
hear about, and people in other like organizations probably would be happy to try and make
To
some changes that
implement
would be
that.
helpful. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Another great one from this year is a Mary Hanks. She was the department head for a nursing school in West Alabama, I want to say. And she also like had these insane progressive strategies, well, like her and her associates revamped their nursing program, and was able to like increase their NCLEX scores from like 70% to 100%. Like everybody
Whoa.
passed because she like took a look at what her students needed, and they like changed what they were teaching from like what's nice to know versus what you need to know. They took away textbooks. They took away like all the textbooks and this like, and I'm just like, she's out there making real change.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she's just like it was just like incredible to me. Like,
I love that. And I
yeah.
feel like bringing together that this community of people. I So I've heard like in nurse practitioner school before, like patients have said to me, like, why didn't you just go to med school or something? And even as nurses, I feel like we get that sometimes, like, oh, like, why didn't you like become a doctor or something? And it's like, well, like, I decided to like continue my education and like, I want to be a leader in the largest group of healthcare workers, right? Like that is so cool, right?
Yeah.
I feel like people forget just how impactful nurses are,
Yeah.
right? And the position that we're in. And so, like, having this platform of this podcast and being able to share that information that leaders within nursing are doing and having good outcomes really affects so much in healthcare, because nurses impact so much.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Yeah,
so many different, conversations that we can have about how we can improve the profession. Like, obviously, there's so much wrong. There's so much like area for improvement here, right? And there's like, but sharing ideas. I mean, that's how we're gonna make change, and like,
absolutely.
bringing bringing ideas to your hospital and your administration, and so it's been really wonderful to be a part of that.
I love that. I love that.
Well, we're at an hour, and I think we could totally
I
talk for
know. It
another
could
hour.
go a really long time, especially with this in front of me. I feel like there's so much. This is like
Yes,
3 hour
there really
conversation in itself.
there really is. So, I can't wait to find out like the 2024 version of that. I'm gonna
I
as soon as it
know.
comes out. It
I
hasn't
am
come
gonna
out yet.
redo it, I think, once
So
it comes out.
It's called the Year Compass. So if you are looking
This is
to
what it
revamp
looks like.
yes, if you're on YouTube, we're holding it up. Yeah, if you're looking for something a little more sustainable than New Year's resolution, I highly recommend it. So
It's a nice activity for the end of the year and motivating for the beginning of the year.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, Christina, it was so nice to see
So
you.
nice
This
to
was so
chat.
fun.
It really was
Yeah.
really fun. I was kind of nervous coming on. I don't know why, because, we're buds. So I was like,
Yeah.
I should be like, but I still somehow was nervous because, anything new is kind of nerve wracking. So,
Yeah, absolutely. For like
yeah.
the first, I don't know, for forever, I used to like get so anxious before episodes, and yeah, it's totally normal. But I'm so happy that you came on. This was
Me
awesome.
too. This was really nice
Well,
to chat.
I hope you have a great year, and
Thank you.
obviously we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. You too.
All right, I'll see you later.
See you.
That brings us to the end of the show. Thanks for tuning in to Nursing Uncharted. To learn more about today's episode, make sure to explore the show notes at americanmobile.com/nursinguncharted. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a guest. If you're a nurse interested in traveling, visit americanmobile.com to explore the largest database of travel nursing jobs in the industry and the amazing benefits that American Mobile has to offer. Also, a special thanks to producer Jonathan Carey, assistant producers Katie Schraubin and Sam McKay, and Aiden Dykes for the music and editing. Until next time, take care of yourself.